Good morning, everyone. What's up? Hope you guys are doing well. Today is Tuesday, May the 26th. Hope you guys had a great long weekend. Coming back into today, markets overall are gapping up. We're above our all-time highs here on both the SPY and the Qs. Decent amount of things to kind of talk about coming into today. There's a bunch of nice higher time frames that are setting up, of course, here as well. What's up, everyone? Before we hop into the charts, let me pull up the economic calendar and the earnings calendar. What's up, everyone? Good morning, Calvin, Vanish, Maria B. Roots, Vate, Lamit, Kevin. What's up, Wakey, Famal, Gerald, Deuce, Sinna. Good morning, Andy. What's up, Knight, Sam, Robert, Jaytan, and what's up, Ashley, Francisco, Julius, Jean. Yeah, I hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys had a great long weekend. Let me pull up the economic calendar and we will get started. As for some of the news events coming to this week, we actually don't have too much for the red folder and orange folder news. For Tuesday, we do have some orange folder news, which is going to be consumer confidence. That is at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then on Thursday, we have the core PCE price index, along with the prelim GDP, unemployment claims, and that's about it. So nothing too big that's going to be super high impact on the markets. We do also have a couple earnings here as well. Let's take a look at this. So we had some earnings last week. The main thing was NVIDIA earnings, which came in fairly neutral. We ended up having a bigger move after earnings. As for a couple other semiconductors to keep an eye out for coming into this week, Marvel, that's going to be Wednesday after close. Other big ones, CRM, Snowflake, and of course we have Dell, that is on Thursday after close. So couple semiconductors here, Dell and Marvel have been moving nicely, both at all-time highs, along with other major semiconductors here as well. And with that being said, let's hop straight into the charts. Since there's quite a few things to keep an eye out for coming into this week. Let's first start off here on the weekly time frame. Starting off with the SPY. Let's take a look at the SPY here on a week by week basis. Currently above our all-time highs, bullish. If you're looking at this on the weekly time frame here as well, last week's candle ended up pushing down in towards the previous week's candle, defended that low, and you can see ended up closing closer to the top of the range. Basically closed in between its previous week's candle. So the past 2 weeks have been a little bit more neutral here in the markets, but closing green here on SPY, defending our 2 weeks previous week's lows, and now you can see we're at our all-time highs currently here in the pre-market. So the higher time frame is still very much bullish. If you're looking at this on the daily time frame, just zooming in just a little bit, higher lows, as you can see, are being built on the daily chart. We end up defending our 730 here on the SPY. Next level, of course, is going to be our all-time highs, which now we're currently above. What we like to see here for the SPY moving forward is really one of two scenarios: the break above 750, retest for continuation towards the upside, or now if we have a little bit of a pullback on the SPY, as long as we maintain above our 730, that's going to be our daily higher low, we can expect continuation towards the upside. So this is what we have on the SPY chart here on the daily. If we go into the hourly chart coming into today, the key levels that we are going to have marked out here is going to be that 750. So this is our previous all-time highs. And as you can see, it's lining up here with our previous day highs. So what we like to see here for the SPY coming into market open is maintain a long bias above our 749. That's going to be our previous day highs for continuation towards the upside. So game plan coming to market open, we're going to maintain a long bias in the markets above our previous day highs. Above now our pre-market highs, you can see continuation here as well. If overall markets do want to break underneath our previous day highs, reject and potentially fill the gap towards the downside, then I'm going to be a little bit more neutral here intraday. So at least for the bias coming to market open above our previous day highs, maintain a bullish bias intraday, break underneath our previous day highs, be a little bit more neutral, and be open to this potential gap fill here in the markets. For the ES, very similar thesis coming into market open. If we go into the weekly time frame, every single week so far has been bullish. And of course, we're above our previous all-time highs key area. You can see last week's candle end up closing bullish here. We did have an inside week, basically an inside week here on the ES. But on the daily time frame, higher lows are being built. You'd see we end up creating a higher low here, and now we're back at our all-time highs. So for the ES moving forward on the daily chart, similar thesis. If we can break above our previous all-time highs, continuation towards the upside. If we do have a little bit of rejection off this level, we're just going to be looking for a higher low above our 73.60 for continuation towards the upside here as well. If we do go into the lower time frames, the key levels that we have coming into market open is going to be that 75.40. This is our previous all-time highs. This is also our previous day highs general area here as well. So this is going to be the key line in the sand coming to market open. We can just mark out that previous day highs, maintain above our previous day highs. Continuation towards the upside here is in play for a continuation higher. And now also above our pre-market highs, we could be looking for a move up in towards our overnight highs here on the ES. Underneath, coming to market open, be a little bit more neutral and be cautious of this gap that we created here in the overnight session. So we end up creating a gap. If we break underneath that previous day highs, we can see this gap fill. If we maintain above it, as I mentioned, we can see this push back towards the upside. So keep this in mind for the overall markets coming into today. Now let's go on to the QQQ chart. Let me actually just grab some water here as well. What's up, everyone? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Can you give me some insights, Mac? Yeah, if you have any sort of Mac, it's just TradingView, right? You don't really need too much. I have like a pretty nice PC, but you can honestly trade on your phone, any computer where you can maybe even have one or two screens. That's going to be perfect. All right, if we're looking at the QQQ weekly time frame perspective, very bullish. You can see last week's candle close here as well. End up wicking just underneath our last week's lows. We end up closing this last week's fairly bullish here. If we're talking about the location in itself, overall market's still holding up very nicely. A little bit more consolidation the past 2 weeks, but now we're already back, of course, at our all-time highs. If we're looking at this on the daily time frame, nice buyers stepping in, higher lows are being created. Nice buyers that stepped in right off that 695 area. And now we're back at our all-time highs, as you can see. If we go into the hourly time frame, key levels that we have marked out coming into today in specific is just going to be that previous day highs along with our previous all-time highs, which happens to be that 722. So you can see a little bit of rejections here on Friday, sell-off coming into close, and then we end up having a gap up coming into this week. And we're having some nice continuation. So far here on the Qs, what we're just going to have marked out for today is going to be that 722. If you want to maintain a bullish bias in the markets above our 722 for continuation higher. Another possible scenario above our pre-market highs for this continued push towards the upside. If we break underneath that previous day highs, hold underneath that previous day highs, then we can see this potential gap fill back towards the downside, 718. So this is what we have for the Qs. Key level, as I mentioned, line in the sand, 722 coming into today. For the NQ, as you can see on the higher time frames, nice break and retest so far. We've been talking about this all-time highs push ever since we bounced off our last week's lows. Now in this case, it's going to be 2 weeks ago. We're looking for that push back up in towards our all-time highs, right? That was our higher low being built. So if we go into the hourly time frame, you can see nice higher time frame, hourly higher low above that 28,800. And you can see nice kind of break and retest, just slowly kind of moving back towards the upside. And now, of course, we're back above our all-time highs. So key levels coming to market open is going to be our previous all-time highs, 29,700. As you can see, nice continuation towards the upside. If we want to continue, we need to see it maintain above this 29,700, right? That's going to be the retest level for continuation towards the upside. So if we go into the lower time frames, that's going to be the key level coming into market open, maintain above our previous day highs for this continued push towards the upside. Another possible scenario now above our pre-market highs for a push up in towards, now it's going to be that key psych, 30,000 on the higher time frames. If we do show a little bit weaker price action underneath our previous day highs, then be a little bit more cautious for longs intraday because there is this gap fill towards the downside, back down in towards that 29,520. So that is something to keep in mind for today. It's going to be that previous day highs on both the SPY and the QQQ. All right, now let's head on to the semiconductor ETF. So the semis ended up showing some nice strength last week after opening up fairly weak. We ended up filling the gap on the higher time frames, but as you can see, look how nice this weekly candle ended up closing. So a lot of the SPY and Qs ended up just bouncing off our last week's lows and continuing higher compared to the SMH, which dug a little bit deeper and we broke underneath that weekly candle low. So we end up having a little bit of a bigger lower wick on the SMH. And as you can see, this candle in itself on the weekly time frame, a little bit more bullish than the SPY and the Qs. But the semis reclaimed some strength. We had some nice bounces on MU, SNDK, a lot of other semis, AMD, nice bounce off that daily gap fill. And of course, now we are back at our all-time high. So SMH now back at that all-time highs. Key levels coming into market open is just going to be our previous day highs, which is that 580, along with our previous all-time highs. So nice reclaim on Friday, nice push towards the upside. Now moving forward, maintain above 580 for that continued push towards the upside. If you go into the lower time frames, 580 along with our previous day highs is going to be key. So maintain above that 580, push towards the upside here on the SMH, above our pre-market highs for continuation higher here as well. So this is what we have for the SMH coming to market open. As you can see, the SMH is a little bit more bullish. We still have this pretty big gap up here as well. I would only be interested in being a little bit more neutral or leaning a little slightly bearish underneath that previous day highs, which would be that 582.50. If we go on to the IWM, this is the exact previous week's retest that we talked about. So as you can see here, key levels that we have marked out is our 270. We talked about this weekly break and retest here on the IWM. And if we flip back onto the daily chart, as you can see, nice buyer stepping in right off that 272. And now we are back at our all-time high. So nice hold here on the IWM, and we're continuing back towards the upside here. So solid break and retest here on the weekly. What I'd like to see now is just continuation. As you can see back here, we had this nice break and retest. And now we're retesting once again. I could see a bigger move up and now towards our 300 key psychological level here on the IWM. As for key levels, previous all-time highs marked out, 287, continuation, hold above our 287 for a push up in towards 290s and potentially 300 now here on the IWM. All right, with that being said, let's head on to some tech names that we have coming into market open here now. If you guys do have any charts or any tickers, you guys can drop them in the chat. If you guys are enjoying this so far, I appreciate if you guys drop a like. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that of course is in the description below as well. All right, let's head on to Tesla first, and then we'll go on to a few other names in the Mag 7. And then we'll make our way down to some other semiconductors, and we'll take a look at some other names here as well. So starting off with Tesla, let's take a look at this on the weekly time frame. I think that's going to give us the best context. Overall, fairly neutral on the year, slightly bullish now. building up higher lows on the daily time frame. We end up having a little bit of rejection off that 450 a couple weeks ago. But for Tesla, overall, a little bit more neutral. Overall more neutral. Higher time frames, of course, on the major indices are bullish. So for Tesla, this one has been kind of lagging behind the overall market. So higher lows are being built on the daily time frame. The key levels that we had was our 400, a little bit of an overshoot, but daily time frame still building up higher lows here. So bullish structure on the daily time frame. Now what we like to see for Tesla is this move back up in towards that 450. That's going to be key. So for Tesla on the lower time frames, what we have marked out now is going to be this 430. That is our Friday's highs. That's also the area that we broke down from here as well. So keep an eye on that 430. If Tesla, we do want to see some upside above our 430. We have room up and towards our gap that we created here, which is that 440. If we reject, which is very possible on Tesla, we can see a move back down in towards our 420 along with that 416. So longs above 430 are in play here on Tesla. So keep that in mind for that previously high break and retest. If we reject, as I mentioned, we can see a push right back down in towards that 424 along with that 420 here on the higher time frame. So that's what we have for Tesla. I'm fairly neutral, but higher lows are being built on the daily time frame. The break back above that 430 is going to be key. Let's talk about Nvidia here. This one had earnings last week. Overall, most likely going to build up more of a higher time frame weekly break and retest, similar thing like the IWM. But as you can see, a lot more consolidation within the past 6 months, but then we recently had a nice push up in towards our all-time highs. Now for Nvidia, the key level is just going to be that previous all-time highs, 210. Weekly higher low I'd like to see be built for continuation towards the upside. So above that 210, I like to see continuation higher. If you look at this on the daily chart, this also gives us a good perspective here as well. Daily break and retest above our 215, 210 general area for this higher low here on the daily time frame. So break, retest, continuation, break, retest, and I like to see now continuation towards the upside. So 215 and this 210 general area is going to be key here for Nvidia. It could do a little bit of an undershoot reclaim, push back up and towards the all-time highs. That would be fine. That would be okay for that daily higher low. But as long as we maintain above this 210, 215, and really this previous all-time highs general area for that continuation towards the upside. So for Nvidia, that's going to be the key levels moving forward, at least on the daily time frame. Not really too much to talk about intraday wise. A lot of other names are at all-time highs or showing a lot more momentum than Nvidia. So we want to be a little bit more patient until we can finally at least get above our earnings low and then potentially back above that earnings high. But the key levels intraday that I'm going to have marked out is fairly simple. It's just going to be that earnings high along with that earnings low. And these are going to be the key levels moving forward. So what we're going to have marked out 218 along with our 226 if we want to see upside. Earnings low reclaim for a pushback towards the upside here, back above that 218. If we reject, we're going to see a push down in towards that 214. So that's going to be key levels intraday. Of course, longs would be in play if we get back above that 226. But first, we need it back above this 218 here on Nvidia. Let's talk about AMD. Another one, really solid weekly close here on AMD. As you can see, buyers stepped in right off that 400 key psych level, end up closing bullish on the week. Plus, we defended our daily gap here as well. So bullish here on AMD, open, push lower, buyers stepped in, closed basically at our all-time highs. If you look at this on the daily chart, perfect bounce right off that 400. A little bit of an overshoot, but buyers stepped in. Daily candle ended up closing fairly strong. And then once we broke back above our previous day highs, continuation back up and towards our all-time highs. So AMD continue to push higher. Next level, of course, is going to be our 500 key psychological level. We also had a higher low be built on the hourly time frame. And now, of course, we are at our all-time highs. So key levels for AMD coming to market open. I actually have two key levels today. On Friday, we end up gravitating towards our all-time highs. A little bit of rejections right off the bat, and then we just kind of consolidated. Now for today, we are above our previous all-time highs. Let me change this color. And other levels that we can have marked out here is going to be that previous all-time highs, which is our 480. As you can see, we can even extend it down in towards that 5 minute, sorry, we can even extend it down in towards that wick high at that 935 candle. So for the AMD chart, key levels that we can have is going to be that 480, maintain above that 480, continuation towards the upside above is in play. Also now above our pre-market highs for continuation towards the upside is in play here as well. So for AMD, this one's fairly bullish on the higher time frames. As long as we can now maintain above that 470, that's going to be the key line in the sand for me, right? That's our previous all-time highs. So what I like to see now, maintain above that 470, continuation towards the upside. So that's going to be the key level moving forward here for AMD. And then for today, right, 470 along with that 482, or sorry, that 480 is going to be key. I'm actually just going to refine this a little bit more, that 480. All right, let's talk about Apple. Apple, another one which is super solid here on the weekly chart. We talked about that break above our all-time highs. Nice, strong weekly candle close once again. Ended up wicking down closer into that 290, ultimately closed at our all-time highs here on Apple. If we look at this on the daily chart, higher lows are being built very nicely. Continuation towards the upside is in play here for Apple. Key levels that I have coming to today is, of course, going to be that previous day highs, 310 here. So Apple end up closing fairly strong on the week. Now we just like to see it maintain above our previous day highs for continuation towards the upside. So keep this in mind for Apple coming to market open above that 310 for continuation. For Google and a couple of these other names here showing a little bit more weakness. So Google recently hit our all-time highs. Now we're having a little bit of a pullback. If we're looking at this on the higher time frames, this weekly candle close end up closing a little bit more bearish. So overall markets close back at our all-time highs. Google and a couple of these names pulling back. I like to see Google maintain above that 380. You can see this is basically our weekly low from 3 weeks ago, and now we're consolidating a little bit more. A weekly candle close underneath can push this all the way back down and towards 350. If we undershoot it, reclaim, we would still be very much bullish. So weekly close is going to be fairly important on this name, at least for this week. But let's keep an eye on that Google hold above. Now it's going to be that 380. We don't want to see kind of weak candle closures and a push back down and towards this daily gap, because this is a possible scenario. We really want to see more if break underneath, reclaim, and then push back up in towards that all-time highs. But Google, we want to be a little bit more patient. We can just now draw this general area. We like to see, as I mentioned, buyers step in off that 380 for continuation. Break underneath, we can see a little bit more weakness on Google. So key level is going to be 380 coming into this week. As for Microsoft, a little bit more consolidation. We like to see kind of this daily flag pattern and push towards the upside. But now the break above our 430 is going to be key. So as you can see, nice push higher, a little bit more consolidation. Now we need to see the break above, hold for this daily gap fill. That's going to be key on Microsoft. As for Meta, another one that's just consolidating here, very tight range. If you look at this on the weekly time frame, super tight range within the past 3 weeks on Meta. So really small weekly candles consolidating, of course, after we had earnings earlier in May. So we want to be a little bit more cautious on Meta until we can break outside this range. So break outside our 620, nice continuation up and towards this full gap fill. Break underneath, we actually have this gap fill towards the downside, down and towards that 580. So that's what we have for Meta. In between here, don't look to trade this. As for Amazon, this one is one of my favorite names here on the weekly time frame. Key levels that we have is going to be that 260. So you can see touch here, 260. Break and retest on the weekly chart for that continuation towards the upside. So as you can see here on the daily chart, higher lows are being built very nicely. We're also above our previous all-time highs here as well. Now what we like to see is continuation higher up and towards that 280 on the daily time frame. If you look at this on the hourly time frame, key levels that we have coming into today is going to be that 270. Other levels that we have is our 260 here as well. Above now our 270, continuation up and towards that 276 on the higher time frames is in play, which is our all-time highs. And then as for Netflix, key levels that we have, similar thing, a little bit more weak compared to a couple other tickers in the overall markets. If you want to see any sort of upside, need it back above our 92.50 here on the weekly time frame. Also, you can see very key level, which is the area that we broke down from. Back above our 90, we can see a push towards the upside. Currently, we're seeing a little bit of sellers stepping in right off our 90 key psych. All right, with that being said, I'm going to go on to a few other tickers here now. So if you guys do have any charts or any tickers you'd like me to go over, you guys can now drop them in the chat. If you guys are enjoying this so far, appreciate if you guys drop a like. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that of course is going to be in the description below here as well. All right, let's go on to a few semiconductors that are leading the markets higher. MU, this one closer to our all-time highs here now as well. So nice bounce last week here on MU. Ended up closing fairly bullish, right? Pretty big lower wick here on the weekly time frame. If we're looking at the location, I'd say we're a little bit more neutral, but obviously right above our all-time highs. Now we like to see that push back up and towards our new all-time highs, which is that 800 key psych. So for MU, super nice break last week. We end up key levels that we have marked out is at 710. That was a key reclaim and kind of slowly pushing back towards the upside, but now MU, a lot of aggressive buyers. Next level is going to be that previous all-time high. So now we're getting back above our previous day high, so we're bullish, and now we're already having that move up and towards our all-time high. So for MU today, it might be a little bit more difficult to trade a couple of these names just because we're already back at our all-time highs level. We need to see MU right above our previous all-time highs, continuation above that 820. Another possible scenario is going to be above that 780 for that push towards the upside here as well. So two scenarios for MU today. As I mentioned, this scenario might be a little bit more difficult above that 820, kind of similar to AMD on Friday. It just might set up a little bit more difficult because we're opening up after this pretty big gap up. We could very much well just kind of pop and then just consolidate for the rest of the day. I'm expecting kind of a similar scenario here on MU, is that we're most likely going to pop. Some sellers are going to step in. If you're long from 710 or anywhere from last week, your sell area is going to be that all-time high. So expecting a pop and then a little bit more consolidation on MU. We'll talk about this a little bit more most likely tomorrow, but key level for today, 820 is going to be key, previous all-time highs. SNDK, this one, we're looking for that all-time highs move as well. So nice higher lows are being built on the daily chart. Let's look for that all-time highs push on SNDK. We end up having a inside bar day on Friday. Now we like to see break and retest above our previous day highs for that all-time highs push. Intel lagging behind just a little bit. So MU seems like it's the leader back towards the upside, hitting our all-time highs here. SNDK, Intel lagging a little bit more behind if we're looking at this on the weekly time frame. Pretty strong weekly candle close 2 weeks ago. And then last week, we end up defending a couple key levels closer to that 100 key psych. But I'd say the past 3 weeks, after 2 weeks ago, a little bit more of a neutral close. Now for Intel, as you can see, daily higher low is being built. We just like to see most likely more of a flag pattern form here now on Intel, and then eventually push towards the upside. So for Intel, key level on the higher time frames is going to be our previous week's highs, which as you can see is our 122. Above our 122, we can see this nice continuation up and towards that 130. If we reject off that 122, then as I mentioned, we could potentially form that daily kind of higher time frame wedge pattern here. So keep in mind, if we reject, then we're just going to come back down most likely to that 110 and eventually push towards the upside. If we break above that previous day highs, then we can see a push up in towards our all-time highs. So keep that in mind for Intel coming into this week. As for a couple other names, WDC moving up fairly nicely. If you're looking at this on the weekly time frame, fairly bullish, nice weekly candle close here as well. You want to see that push back up and towards our all-time highs here, of course. So above our previous day highs. I'd like to see it now above our 490, continuation towards the upside, above our 500 key psych, continuation up and towards our 520s in play. So this is what we have for this one. TSM looks fairly solid. Keep an eye on TSM here on the weekly time frame. One of my favorite charts setting up here as well. We can break and retest here on the weekly. Nice break. Lower wicks here on the weekly time frame, and now what I like to see is this continuation above our previous week's highs, above that 420, continuation towards the upside is in play. So for TSM, nice break and retest, nice hold of that 390. Now what I like to see is the break above 420, continuation towards the upside. So keep an eye out on TSM coming to this week, more so of a longer term, more so of kind of like a swing position and a trade that's going to develop a few weeks out. But for TSM, this one looks good. Back above that 410, continuation in towards our all-time highs here is in play. Let's go into a few other tickers here. Qualcomm, this one's been moving up nicely, back at our all-time highs here now as well. I talked about Qualcomm last week and the week prior, looking very solid. Key levels that I have marked out, let's just kind of mark up brand new levels on this one. All-time highs. And of course, we had this consolidation. So we had a low volume pullback. Once we broke back above our previous day high, that was our sign that we could be looking for a trade back towards the upside. Now we're at our all-time high. So this one, be a little bit more cautious coming to market open here today. I do expect a little bit of reaction here off that 250. Anyone buying Qualcomm, first take profit is going to be this all-time high. So 250 today. Kind of a similar setup to like AMD. This one's a lot more explosive though, so expecting continuation, right? AMD, MU, we had that first initial pop, expecting something kind of similar here on Qualcomm. First initial pop, expecting continuation towards the upside, a little bit of sellers to kind of step in, and then you like to see it just maintain above our previous day highs along with their previous all-time highs for continuation towards the upside. So that's what we have for Qualcomm, above now 250 or that previous day highs for continuation towards the upside. So that's what we have on AMD. Sorry, that's what we have on Qualcomm. If we're looking at ARM, this one, another one, super strong base, daily flag, continuation towards the upside. Key levels for ARM is going to be that previous day highs. And I also have our 296, which is our high that we created here on Thursday. So for ARM, what we'd like to see today is the reclaim back above our previous day highs for continuation towards the upside, or now that retest all the way back down in towards our 300 for continuation towards the upside here as well. All right, that's what we have coming into today. Let's go on a few other tickers. We can go into now. Yeah, Hardtick, if you have any questions, you can just email me. I think that's going to be a lot easier. If I have any time, I'll try and respond to my email. As for now, key levels that I have marked out, so far, we need to see the break back above our 105. Right, 105 is going to be key. We end up having a rejection last week. Reclaim back above our 105 is going to be key for a potential pushback towards the upside. Other couple names that I like in the markets, right? TE, this one looks super solid. It's going to form some sort of daily flag pattern. But this next leg towards the upside is going to be nice and strong, back above that previous all-time highs. If we're looking at this here on the hourly time frame, earnings as of recent, keep an eye on this higher low here in this daily, or sorry, this hourly break and retest above our 7.5 for continuation towards the upside. So keep this in mind. right? 750. This has been there's been a couple other names that have been heating up as of recent as well. So a lot of themes in the markets. With the markets being at all-time highs, we still have semiconductors moving higher. We still have, right, tech names moving higher. And then, of course, we have other names in the markets that are continuing to push towards the upside. Just because whenever the markets are at all-time highs, right, SPY Qs, basically everything goes up, right? You have even small caps starting to head higher. You have obviously the tech names already at all-time highs. So now a lot of people will start kind of rotating a little bit more money into these smaller names or different type of sectors where they'll look for, right, higher time frame breakouts on those ones as well. So with that being said, let's kind of go over the game plan once more coming into today, and then I'm going to get ready for market open. Key levels that we have marked out is going to be that previous day highs. That's going to be key for continuation. So I'm just going to maintain a long bias in the market as long as we're above our previous day highs. As for the SPY and Qs, so far we are having that nice break and retest. So in the pre-market, nice buyers are stepping in. Now we're looking for that continuation back towards our all-time highs. For ES, similar thing. Now we just like to see it maintain above our previous day highs for this pushback up in towards our all-time highs. As for some of the main watches coming to today, I'm going to keep an eye out on Tesla. Let's keep an eye on Tesla above that 430 for potential continuation. Nvidia, we're going to need to see the reclaim back above. These ones are more kind of secondary watches. My favorite watch is coming to today. Let's keep an eye out on AMD. AMD above our previous day highs, 480 for continuation up and towards our 500. And then other levels is that 470 for potential bounce play for continuation towards the upside. Apple still looks good above our previous day highs. And then for Google, Microsoft, Meta, I'm going to be a little bit more patient on Amazon. I needed above that 270. And then, of course, MU, SNDK, Intel, all these ones look good. MU, as I mentioned, up about 8% here in the pre-market. Going to be a little bit more difficult, expecting a pop and then kind of consolidation. But the retest is in play here off that 820. So for MU now, most likely the play is going to be that retest above that 820. Similar thing to AMD. It wasn't really tradable on Friday. So expecting something similar to MU coming to market open. As for SNDK, break and retest above our previous day highs is in play. Similar thing here with Intel above our previous day highs for continuation towards the upside. Let's take a look at Dell here as well. Dell ended up having a really solid breakout on Friday. Dell, I'm not expecting a gap fill reversal. This one does have earnings later into the week. We also recently had this breakout on this flag pattern, and this continuation towards the upside. If we're looking at this on the daily chart, or sorry, looking at this on the hourly time frame, key levels that we have marked out is going to be our previous day highs, which is going to be that 296. So we do have a gap up. We're most likely just going to come back down and retest our previous day high. So if we're talking about this gap fill, yes, this is a possible scenario, but most likely we're already going to be filling the gap coming into market open. So for Dell, just keep an eye out on that 297 retest for that continuation back towards the upside. NVTS has been a name that's been heating up as of recent as well. We've talked about this a couple weeks ago, but nice break finally above our all-time highs. Last week was the first week we ended up having a really solid weekly candle close on NVTS. We had nice break, retest, continuation, nice break, retest, and then ended up having a super solid breakout Thursday, Friday for that continuation higher here as well. Key levels, previous day highs, mark this out. Now that's going to be key. Maintain above that previous day highs for continuation towards the upside. This one's also at our all-time highs here. So now we can expect a bigger move. Some targets I have 40 and then of course 50 are the next key levels. So that's going to be it for me today. The key game plan is just to keep an eye on the SPY and Qs, maintain a bullish bias above our previous day highs. That's going to be key. And then for some of the names, Tesla, Nvidia, AMD above our previous day highs. And then we'll keep an eye out on MU, right? SNDK looks good, right? Similar thing with Intel. A lot of these names look good, right? Qualcomm, right? ARM, right? There's a lot of these ones that are at our all-time highs. Even TSM looks good. So the main thing is to just kind of hone in on 1 to 2, 1 to 3 intraday setups. The rest of these names look good for like longer term day trades plus swing positions. So if you're interested in day trades, just keep an eye on the ones that have a lot of relative strength. Besides that, a lot of these names, the rest of the names, the higher time frames all look good. So they're more kind of swing setups, longer term day trades. So give those ones a little bit more wiggle room. And then for the day trades, just maintain a long bias above our previous day highs here, of course. But yeah, that's going to be it for me today. I'm going to get ready for market open here now. And with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed that. If you did, appreciate if you guys drop a like and sub. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that of course is in the description below. And I'll see you guys all tomorrow. All right, take care, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Peace.